This is Adam and the Analog, episode 70. This week, we're talking about teaching board games and the brand new release from Allplay, Ruins. Hello and welcome to Adam and the Analog, episode 70, the only podcast on the planet. I'm your host, Corey Murphy.
Full stop. Full stop. There we go. And I'm your other host, Harrison Dunn.
We're talking about board games, baby. And actually today, we're talking about how to teach board games.
Does that mean we're not going to talk about games? We're not going to just make a list of games?
No, not today. We're going to mix it up.
What?
We're going to cover, based on experience, how to approach the teaching of a game. This might be a game that you've never played before or a game that you have played and know really well. And I tell you, from a teaching perspective, it's really easy to lose sight of how complex something can be after you understand it really well yourself and what background knowledge players are going into it with. So yeah, man, we got a good list. Let me just put it that way. We're going to cover that later.
Corey, what kind of credentials do you have to give people advice on how to teach games?
well, I tell you what, I have stumbled many a time. So despite being a professional teacher in a completely different subject, it doesn't naturally make me good at teaching a board game because sometimes I take for granted how well I know the game to begin with. These things are complicated.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they super are. And I mean, Corey's a teacher. I'm coming at it from a perspective of having demoed board games for 10 plus years at various conventions. And we both have experience with teaching people things that they may or may not be invested in. They may have other stuff going on and be distracted. So all that is to say, this is just our perspective and our advice on it, and your teaching method may vary. But just keeping some of these things in mind as you are teaching might help you improve your own teach process.
Okay, but first, before we get to it, we need to start with our recently played games. And Harrison, I am happy to report I have played multiple new games this week. I'm excited to talk about these recent releases, and it looks like you have too.
I have played a few new games, yes.
And what are they?
Well, first of all, there's the FlipToons, right? I mean, it's not really new to me, but it is officially out in retail now. So that's the Thunderworks game that we published, and it's a deck building game with very light, sort of like automated play to it. It's on Board Game Arena, and that's going to be officially launching on Board Game Arena, coming out of beta, I think, on October 1st. So a couple days after you're listening to this. And I even got to go on a stream with Amanda Panda on Twitch the other day to play FlipToons with her and our marketing person, Jess Carrier. And we played a couple rounds, answered questions, and I even teased some upcoming stuff for FlipToons. So if you want to go check that out, you can go follow Amanda Panda on Twitch.
Nice.
And on top of that, Keith, my boss, hosted a little party for the Equinox. They do that every year. And that party mainly involves lots of food and board games. So we got to play a 5-player game of First Rat. Have you played this one, Corey? Do you know what this is?
No, I don't know what it is.
All right. First Rat is a wild concept of a game. And I taught Lauren how to play it. We taught Lauren how to play it. And we didn't tell her the theme up front. Someone else just started explaining the rules. And when they got to the point of, okay, and then this is how you build your rocket, Lauren just like full stop was like, wait, what? What are we doing? So First Rat is about sentient cartoon rats rummaging through a junkyard to build spaceships to go to outer space. This was a game from, I think it's Pegasus Spiele. I should probably fact check myself since I'm at a computer.
It is.
Right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, wait. Let me just check though. Aren't all rats sentient, or is there something I don't know?
Oh, sorry. You're right. Anthropomorphized
Okay,
rats.
checking.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, you are correct. All rats are sentient. So this came out in 2022, and this is kind of it's like an advanced Euro shoots and ladders. On your turn, you're going to be moving some number of spaces forward, collecting the resources or the goodies on the space that you move forward on. And then there's a couple spaces along the way where you can either buy an upgrade or you can steal the upgrade and go all the way back down to the beginning. So that's where it kind of like has the ebb and flow of a shoots and ladders. You get multiple rats that you're going to be running up this track trying to collect different resources. But one of the cool little hooks is on your turn, you can either move one rat or all of your rats. If you move a single rat, you can move further and get to those better spaces on the top more quickly. But if you move more than one rat, you can move up to all four of them, a fewer number of spaces, and they have to be all on the same color landing space. But you can get some really powerful turns. And so I had a nice little engine going where I was able to get all my rats to land on the cheese spaces at the same time and rake in a bunch of cheese to fulfill some end game goals.
Hmm.
It's a pretty neat game. I really
Yeah.
enjoy it.
I like it when you take a simple classic board game like Shoots and Ladders and you turn it into something Euro-y. I didn't know this was what First Rat was trying to do.
It is a weird game, but the production value is incredible. The gameplay feels really good. It gives you a fair number of like other objectives or tracks to advance on to try to eke out an economic advantage over your opponents. So you
Hmm.
can just play the main course and try to get the most stuff and build a rocket, or you can try to send your mouse through the burrows at the bottom of the board and get unique power-ups and unlock extra rats, or you can try to advance your light bulb token, which is a way to increase the value of all future spaces. So there's a lot of ways to kind of find a way to get the most out of your time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's not actually a new game. That came out like 2016. Oops, I'm typing in
Oh,
the
it was new to Lauren, so I counted it. I played it once before, but
Okay, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, but FlipToons, that's a recent release.
Yeah, that's a new
Yeah.
one. I was just talking about games that I've played. Sorry, Corey. I
No,
missed
no,
the memo.
I'm I introduced these as new games. So to me, this is new. I've never heard of First Rat before, but that sounds cool.
Oh yeah, definitely go check it out.
Yeah. Over the weekend, Nikki and I visited some friends in town that have a lot of the new games, and we got to play top of my need to play list Runes and Things and Rings, both of the most recent Allplay hits. So Harrison spoke very highly of Runes after Gen Con this year, and ever since I've been eager to try it. I did not realize that thing was in such a small box. It's kind of amazing at what they can fit in a little tiny Allplay box.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's real small.
it's really crammed in there too. But the idea of Runes is it's a card game, and it's not a trick taking game in a traditional sense, but it kind of has like a trick taking feel to it in the sense that someone leads and they're determining with a number of cards that you're going to play, and then everyone around the table has to basically beat that. They can only play if they can play a higher value of the same number of cards. So if I lead with a 5, the next player can play a 6, the next player can play a 7, so on and so forth. If I lead with two fives, a pair of fives, the next player can play two sixes, two sevens, so on and so forth. But you could also match the cards. So if I led with two fives, the next player also has two fives. What are the odds? They can play that and skip the player that's next to them in turn order. The next level of this is that this is a John D. Clair game, and John D. Clair is kind of known for these transparencies on the card. And so as you're playing your hand, you can spend fire tokens to upgrade the card you're playing by either increasing its numeric value, by adding a wild factor to it, or by adding something that replenishes your flames, things like that. And so because it's a trick taking like game, everything comes from a central deck. So you might be upgrading a card, and that's like the last time you're going to see it for a while because it gets shuffled and redealt in the next round. But each player has two claim tokens that they can throw on those cards with like kind of a colored border on them for the red player or the blue player. And then whenever those cards are drawn in subsequent rounds, they get handed back to that player. They automatically go back to that player, which I think is a really neat mechanic because obviously you're throwing those on cards that you've upgraded and made much better. So you want them in your hand. But also the whole point of this game is to get rid of all the cards in your hand. So the player that drew it and is like, "Oh no, I have to give this up." They're also like, "Well, actually, now I've already kind of got to start on what I'm trying to do anyway." So
Hmm.
that was an interesting balance, and it usually Yeah, in almost every case, it benefits the player that gets the card, but it's also not bad for the player that has to give it up.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I think the key part there is if I get your card in my opening hand, I give it to you, and I don't refill my hand. So now instead of each starting at 10, I'm starting at 9, and you're starting at 11 cards.
Mhm.
So yes, you get your card back, but now you also have one extra card to get rid of before you can go out.
Yeah. You get to do some really bonkers things in this game. I mean, you can increase the values of the cards that I think they max out at 10 on their printed values, but you can add, I mean, you can crank them up to like 19 and 20 in some cases by adding pluses to them
Mhm.
because there's
Yep.
three possible levels of upgrades with the transparencies. And so, some of the things you're doing is just playing these ridiculously high cards and just, stealing a trick and saying, okay, this one's done. I win this one so I can lead the next one. Or sometimes you're just kind of like limping in there with like twos and threes, and everyone's just trying to get rid of the low cards in their hand. So there's lots of different approaches to the strategy, which is super cool. But by the end of the game, I think the pacing was just right. That the cards all were upgrading effectively on target with the rounds increasing, so that by the end of the game, you're playing like four and five of a kind sometimes. And it's like, wow, that feels really powerful. You'll never beat that. And then sure enough, someone can.
Yep.
So that was really cool. I thought this game had a lot in it for such a simple set of rules, and really cool production too. I mean, obviously the transparency thing is neat, and the art that comes with it is no slouch either.
Now I gotta. Did you play with the upgraded tokens, like the poker chip tokens?
uh, let's see, did we? I don't know. I don't
Okay,
think
yeah, it
so.
was one of the optional upgrades. Allplay does this. They have the base game, but then they sell like 1 to 2 premium upgrades for it. And I sprung for the deluxe campfire tokens that turns them from like little cardboard discs to like poker chip discs.
Nice. Yeah, it's got probably good board game feel to it then,
Oh
huh?
yeah, yep.
One of the things that I hear a lot of people unsure of with this game is the game ending situation. The game could naturally end if certain conditions are met, as far as like the player has reached a scoring threshold by the end of the last round and then goes out first. But if that doesn't happen, I think it's the fifth round, you trigger this showdown, which is kind of unusual, and it's sort of like it's kind of a clunky solution to the we have to end the game somehow rule. um, but what happens in the showdown is the player with the most points gets pitted against the player that went out first in the last round, and it's just a one-on-one. Everyone else just sits there and watches them play. And so I didn't find it too appalling, but I know that the others that played the game with us were like, "Oh, that was kind of anticlimactic." So I don't know. What do you think of that?
Okay. No, I really like that aspect of it. Eh, the way that the scores work out, it feels like because you need so many or few points to like end the game, that there's usually like a clear front runner. At least there was in the few games that I've played.
Mhm.
And so that final round, it really does feel like a showdown. And it was interesting to see these two players go head to head. And then that's also where the skipping can get pretty crazy, because now a skip means, oh, I'm forcing you to pass. Uh, I
Mhm.
play I play two twos, and now you play those two twos. Well, I just lost my turn. It clears. Now you have the lead. You get to play from your hand. So there's a lot more mind games on there, and the couple showdowns that we did at Origins when I picked this up had just some really cool end games. Like I wasn't involved in one of them, but it was a really interesting back and forth. And the person who was in second place ended up winning from that. They just outplayed them, which felt it was a cool moment.
Okay.
So
Well,
I enjoyed it, but it's not for everyone.
yeah, and like I said, I could see why others would not be so excited about that. Okay, and then really quick, I won't spend too much time on this one, but I did want to mention that I have finally played Things and Rings, and I thought that game was really unique and really clever. And one of those games that when it was described, I was like, "Oh, why didn't I think of this?" Or why didn't anyone else think of this? It's a very cool sort of deduction game using a Venn diagram where one player knows the words and is using comparisons with these really cool Dr. Seuss art style cards to kind of place them into the appropriate intersections of the hidden words. And so by the end of it, even if we didn't know what the specific words were. We had a feeling about them, and we could get pretty close to what the meanings were, in order to empty our own hands of cards. And those cards were thinking, okay, like it's a toaster. I think that applies to this category and this category. So I'm going to drop it here. The knower says yes or no. If it's yes, you get to continue to play it and you don't have to redraw. If it's no, your turn ends and you draw a card to replace it. So another cool game in a small box. I want to play it again. we, we played it once with the hard mode words, and it was really hard.
Oh, yes.
Have
Yeah.
you tried that?
Yeah, yeah, it is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Um, did you play competitive or, cooperative?
Yeah. Oh, yes. We played competitive, but the whole time I was thinking, this might be better cooperative. I'd like to share my guesses with each other, with the other players,
Mhm.
which I did
Yeah.
anyway. But
Yeah, we played the cooperative with, my family, so I got to teach my, mom and my brother how to play it.
yeah, cool game, cool idea, and like I said, the art's really neat. They had the promo, so there's like the Necronomicon floating around in there, and a bunch of
Mm.
other pop culture references done in Dr. Seuss art. So that was cool.
Yeah, my mom drew Mjolnir and did not know what it was.
Oh, yeah, Mjolnir. That's another one. Nice. Well, shall we talk about teaching games?
Let's get to it.
All right. So our topic this week is not a list of board games, but it's a list of, well, one, two, three, four, five. That's six. It's a list of 6 rules for teaching board games. And maybe rules is not the right word. Maybe more like suggestions, right? This is based on our humble opinions and our experience doing this for many, many years. Um, and I'm sure that everyone's got a different approach to this, so take this with a grain of salt. But at the very least, I think this is going to stimulate some thinking about this kind of approach to teaching games.
Yeah. Do we have a first player rule for this, Corey? Do you wanna teach me the first player rule for teaching rules? Oh boy, I've gotten myself in a rule loop.
Our first player rule is that off the podcast, we decided who was going to talk first.
And these are, like, roughly in order of how they might be applicable to your teach. So if you were to follow all of these suggestions, hopefully the order here helps provide some structure for you too.
Awesome. So let's start with the first one. Do your homework. This seems pretty obvious, but I don't know how many times I played a board game with someone that didn't start thinking about the rules before everyone sat down together. And depending on the weight of the game, that might be plausible for something like Things and Rings. It might not work so well for something like Maracaibo or Arc Nova. Now, you could have everyone struggle through it, but it would literally add an hour and a half onto one of those heavier games. So it is important that the player that's teaching the game does spend the time learning it and has a good understanding of the concepts of the game and the mechanics of the game beyond I watched a video and I think I get it kind of level, because there's so much depth to it that's hard to perceive until you've actually tried to do it. So,
Mhm.
I don't know about you, Harrison, but personally, when I learn a game, I actually set it up on the table and I go through a couple of game actions just to kind of see how things feel, and I can sort of speak from experience.
Yeah, everyone's gonna learn the game, in a different way, what works best for them, and that's gonna be on you to figure out how you best learn the game. Not only what's most enjoyable, but what helps you actually learn the rules yourself. Whether that be reading the rule book, maybe skimming it and going with the video, or setting it up and playing through a whole game on your own beforehand. Any whichever way you choose, if any of those or all of them, making sure that you have that baseline understanding to help the rest of your table play is
Mhm.
crucial to it. Yeah, there's been a handful of times where we sat down to play a game and then somebody opens up the rule books and they're like, okay, let's figure out how to play, and that is a big red
Yeah.
flag.
Yeah,
I
my
don't.
heart would start beating
Yeah.
immediately.
Yep. Yep. So, uh, sometimes I need to pull out the rule book to figure out, like set up things or refresh my memory if it's been a while. It's kind of on the border. I should probably like even refresh my memory before playing a game, but that's not always possible, right? If you don't know what
Yeah,
you're going to play until you sit down.
and just to tag one more thought onto that is understanding of the game is one big deal, but also understanding the rule book is another, because oftentimes I find myself watching videos for these games, but when the inevitable comes up and I have to look up a rule, knowing where to find it in the rule book and how that rule book is structured is an important part to being efficient in solving those problems. They're not all the same, they're not all created equal. So, Yeah, I mean, this is this is where I remember learning about this portion of the game would help you get to the point that you're looking for in most cases.
Do you have a favorite rule book, Corey?
Oh, that's a good question. This is like the most board gamery geeky question I've ever been asked before, but I'm excited to answer it. I think Root is one of my favorites because they do a really good job of breaking down like a glossary and like the core rules and like a hypothetical first game. How about you?
Mine is the Castles of Burgundy rule book, but
Oh yeah.
not the deluxe one. Actually, I don't like the deluxe one very much. I really like the one from 2011, I think it is. So the original 2011 rule book has, I mean, it's all pretty dry and pretty beige, but in the margins of every single page, there's like a summary or an example or something to just like
Mm,
grasp onto and
yeah.
figure out the rules. And so the first time I learned this game, I think I've told the story before, but I did the bad thing and we learned it right before we were about to play it. I sat and read the rules for 45 minutes, 50 minutes, while Lauren and our friend Will just sat there and drank and talked. That was a miserable experience.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But credit to the rule book, I only missed up one thing: the how the ships work, how the turn order works in the first go.
Nice.
And going back to that rule book, it just not only is it easy to like, oh yeah, this is how it goes because there's a nice little thing you can latch onto in the margins. But just learning it the first time too, it's nice to have those like points reiterated and reworded, if in case the first time through didn't really work for you.
Yeah, no kidding. I definitely have some least favorite rule books, but we won't go there.
Cool. So do your homework. That's a good one. All right. Next up, I like to teach my games in a structure that we'll call big to little. Start with the biggest, broadest things first, and then work your way down. And at the very start of the game, there's nothing bigger than why are we even here? Like, right? Start with the objective, even if it's just get the most points, as it often is in our board game land. It can be something like, hey, we're playing the quest for El Dorado. Your goal is to get all the way to the end of this maze of tiles or through this jungle. Or, hey, we're playing Castles of Burgundy. We're going to play this number of rounds, and the player with the most points at the end of it's going to be the winner. Just giving something for players to latch onto at the very beginning can help them anchor their learning and understanding for everything else that comes afterwards. And then
Mhm.
after that, I like to start with the objective and then break it down, start with broad topics and then get to smaller things. So start with the objective, then talk about maybe the round structure. Hey, rounds are going to be broken into these phases A, B, and C, and then go into those individual phases and then individual turn structures. From there, you can talk about the individual actions, and then at the very end, maybe even touch on some exceptions, although maybe not too many of those because those can really bog down.
And I think to add to that too, understanding the mechanical objective is important, but understanding the thematic objective might help you get there too. In the case of something like Castles of Burgundy, which we just talked about recently, um, it becomes a little abstract, right? Because it's, it's like, what are these things actually representing? And I don't know that the rule book necessarily sets the tone thematically as well as some other games do. But to explain that you're kind of crafting your duchy and you're building out your kingdom, and you get those points by adapting different synergies in the different tiles and finding different scoring tiles to add to your duchy. I think that kind of helps you to understand like this construction element that's sort of going on in a game like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, anything you can latch onto. And this suggestion, this rule, big to little, is probably one that takes a lot more work than is just in the rule book because you really have to not only read the rules and understand them, but then synthesize that information and think about, okay, how is uh, how is this game going to be broken down into the broadest concepts and then down to more narrow things? Hopefully, the rule book is written that way, but not all games work that way. Not all rule books can be written that way.
Okay. The next one is use the game structure. And so many games have player aids or different resources that are given to players to explain the order of sequence on a turn or what some of the resources mean. And sometimes you can find a really good handy one on Board Game Geek to print out as well. Not all games need this. Okay, let me make that clear. Some of them are very simple in terms of mechanics. You don't need to print out a player aid for just one, for example. But there are so many that would benefit from a structure of events that each player can look at and reference when they're going through their actions on their turn. Sometimes people just get sloppy because they do turn actions out of order, and that causes, can I take that back? That was like 3 turns ago. I did that in the wrong order. But if you teach the game with those resources in mind and in hand, I think that helps players to relate what's being spoken to them about the game rules to what they have access to so that they can, teach a man to fish, right? So that they can fish.
Yeah, a lot of games do have player aids or maybe a reference sheet on the back of the rule book to refer to. But I think the important part is to use the tools that you have there. The designers, the creators of these games want you to enjoy them, and using the structures and the tools that they provide can really help aid that teaching structure. Um, Not only to help you teach it, but also help other players remember it.
Yeah. And I think that if the player aid doesn't exist, the structure still exists regardless of the game. And so teaching the game in terms of, okay, it is the beginning of the turn. At the beginning of the turn, this is what happens. A, B, and C. You can like verge off and veer from that point, but the point is this is all part of that step of the game. After that, then you begin taking your actions. That's where you avoid those confusions, and sometimes having an understanding of those sequencing things helps us to understand the mechanics better too.
So another important thing, and this is going to come up a lot, right? When you're teaching a game, you're talking about what happens at the beginning of the turn, and then someone goes, "Hey, wait, what's this?" They point to something that's like an end game scoring or you haven't talked about yet.
Hmm.
Um, that's good, right? That means the players are interested in learning about it, or they have questions, or they're starting to form questions about how the game works. While it's important to keep focus on the current step and make sure that your teach remains structured in a way that can help all players learn. If you are getting a lot of questions, that might mean that something in your teach needs to be corrected, or you can address the questions as they come up. A lot of the times, I'll just say, "Oh, I'm about to get to that. Hold on a second." But if it's a bigger thing, like someone starts asking, "Oh, does that mean this piece does this?" Uh, it might be better to pivot and address that situation and then circle back to where you started.
Hmm.
Um, and I think the biggest thing is just like allow questions and pause, ask for questions. That could be another thing too. Is you finish uh, a big chunk or an important piece of the game, take a beat, say, "Hey, does everyone get that? Does that make sense? Are there any questions?" Uh, Give players that opportunity to ask questions, make it feel like a welcoming environment to learn. Like you're all here to have fun and learn the game together. Yes, it might be a competitive game, but making sure that everyone understands and is on a level playing field is really important.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I've gone to a convention to learn a game, and the person teaching it often is doing a beautiful job of teaching it, but just goes nonstop. And once again, it is kind of a testament to that blind side of having a good understanding of the game yourself and not remembering what it's like to feel overwhelmed by the mechanics the first time. And so sometimes we just need a second to process those rules. Sometimes we need a second to ask a clarifying question. And personally, the way my brain works, if I have a question that I need clarified for step A and we're on step C, I won't be able to focus on any other steps until I get that answer because I'm thinking in my brain trying to, solve that problem myself. So I would need a chance to ask that question. That's how I learn, and I think it's going to be different for every game learner, depending on their style.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. Cool. So if you didn't pick up on that, that's another rule right there. Allow questions. Ask for questions. Questions are good.
Hmm.
Any questions? All right. So I'm going to actually cut Corey in line here because I want to talk about the next thing too, and then he wants to talk about the last thing. So it all works out. Um,
Hmm.
so you're teaching a game. You're teaching Castles of Burgundy. You're teaching Ark Nova. You're teaching Just One. You're teaching all three games at the same time, and you've reached the end. It's very important, in my opinion, to go back and just like hit the highlights again. Talk about the end game scoring, the end game condition, whatever is going to be critical to somebody, playing there and being able to form a long-term strategy. You want to like touch on that again. If there was a weird exception in the rules, maybe cover that one more time and just reiterate those things. And that can make sure to everyone's focused on the right thing. If you go through teaching a game and then there's a bunch of cards and you go into all the individual card explanations and then you say, okay, let's go, let's start. Maybe someone got so distracted by all the cool engine building stuff that they can do that they forgot that what they're trying to do in the first place. So I think it's really important to just say, okay, we know all the rules. We asked some questions. Go back to the beginning. Be like, this is what we're doing. We are building our duchy in Burgundy over 6 rounds. Person with the most points at the end wins. Yeah, reiterating and highlighting.
There's some things that will make a whole lot more sense after you've explained the rest of the game too. So going back to those points and saying, okay, now remember when I talked about this? That's why you'd want to do that. Oh, okay, right?
Mm. Yep.
Cool. Speaking of, the last topic or the last suggestion is a mid-game check-in, and it's for that very reason. There's certain things that don't need to be said right off the bat. And I'm coming from the perspective of the first game is an experiential one. I don't intend to be competitive the first time I play a board game. Okay, especially the more complicated board games. Unfortunately for board gamers, there are just so many board games that you often don't have more than one time to play a board game. So I know people get in that habit of thinking, wow, I've got to have this all figured out right off the get go, or feeling really, for lack of a better word, salty when they don't feel like a rule has been properly explained to them the first time
Hmm.
and they wish they would have known that. That is my pet peeve, by the way. Um, but there is so much to cover. The teacher is going to make mistakes, but sometimes some things can be intentionally omitted to make it easier to focus on the big picture concepts. And then before those things become relevant, pause, everyone stop what you're doing at the end of this round. We're going to add a little bit more information to your plate because these are corner case rules. These are things that we needed to talk about, we need to mention, but you didn't need to know them to start the game. Okay, they would only loosely affect your understanding of it for the first few turns, but it's better to have a grasp on the mechanics and the feel for the game by actually doing it first. So I can think of a bunch of games that have cases like that. Currently, none of those specific examples are coming to mind, but I'd say almost every game has has one or two of these things.
Yeah, I got some ready to fire. So
Yeah, okay.
we've been talking about FlipToons, and whenever I teach FlipToons to players, I started off say, hey, this is a deck building game. There's your starting deck. I don't even deal out the market to people. I just have them immediately do their first flip and tally their
Mm,
fame. And once
yeah.
everyone's done that, then I say, okay, everyone's got their fame total. Ooh, does anyone have the lowest? If you get the lowest, you get this little bonus from the skunk, which is a nice opportunity to discuss dismissing, like this idea of dismissing. And then
Mhm.
once everyone's kind of settled on that, I said, okay, the next phase of the game is the market phase, and then I'll flip over the 5 cards from the market and say, okay, this is what the market is. Here's the new cards that you can get. Uh, that way, I get to start the play, do a rolling teach as they call it,
Mhm.
and then introduce the rules as they're relevant. It works even better for these games that have really short play time or are a lot more tactically based. You can't do long term planning. Because then you don't have to worry about players that be like, "Oh, I wish I would have known that up front. I would have played differently."
Mhm.
So yeah, if if there's fewer long term decisions to make for your strategy, that could be a clue to look for some of these mid game check ins or rolling teach opportunities.
Nice. Yeah, now that you say that, I can think of Kemet being one where all of the tech tiles are face up in front of you, and you've got, like, I don't know, 40, 50 different choices to make in the beginning of the game. Sometimes it's good to just keep those face down until you can actually access them because your pyramids are strong enough. So
Yep.
that kind of thing I think works just fine. Yes, players would say, man, I probably would have upgraded that one further because I would like to get that technology. But when in a case like this, there's no wrong answer, right? Any one of those technologies is strong, any one of those decisions is valid. Don't feel bad because you made a different one, right? There's no wrong one in the first game. Now, Harrison, in the spirit of practicing what we preach, I think we should reiterate and highlight our list, don't you?
Oh, that's a great idea, Corey. May I?
Yeah.
All right. So our rules for teaching rules, or mild suggestions from our experience. Do your homework. Learn the game ahead of time. Big to little. Start with the objective and then work your way down to the more specific items. Use the game structure. Use any tools that the game gives you, including player aids or reference tools to help you teach. Allow questions. Pause and check for understanding to make sure everyone is on the same page. reiterate and highlight. Always end your teach with highlighting the important things like endgame condition or scoring. And finally, the mid game check in. Check in with people as you're playing, make sure that everything is understanding, make sure everyone remembers when the game's going to end, or even do a rolling teach, introducing new rules as they become relevant.
Nice.
We should have just
And
done that. We could have gotten this podcast done in like 3 minutes.
yeah, there you go. Um, there's our structure, and then as every good board game has, there's much more depth to each of those steps. So it's kind of meta, right? That's our game structure, right? Or
There you
player
go.
aid,
So
if you
if
will.
if you need more information, go back and listen to the episode that you've probably been listening to up until now.
Yeah.
Oh,
One final thing that I'd like to just mention that doesn't really fit into our schematic here, but is an important part of this is I think that like kind of care and I don't know what the word is. Maybe the management of distractions I think is important. And that's difficult in a busy place like a convention center when you're playing with people that are coming from different places, different levels of experience, and there's a lot of noise. But even in your own household, if you got music on and stuff like that. But as Harrison alluded to, sometimes you get players that are just like asking 13,000 questions because they're eager and they want to get to the next step. And it would be very tempting to answer those questions because you're also eager to teach the game. But sometimes that causes like chaos in the mind of the learners. And so all of those little things that are popping up and sort of drawing attention away from the focus makes it a lot harder to learn. And so when you have players that say have played the game before paired with new players, it's easy to just like kind of let them sit for 40 minutes and they're just twiddling their thumbs, but it is a necessary evil, unfortunately. So you might find a way to effectively and strategically bring them into the teach at the appropriate times while still keeping it focused on the structure and just kind of keeping everyone on the same page, pausing for questions, reiterating, and highlighting.
definitely worth calling out.
All right, cool. Well, that's good. I want to go teach some games.
Yep.
Actually,
Bye.
I actually do love teaching games. I often sign up to teach games at these conventions because I get to play all of the games that I don't get to play much at home. And there's just something so fun about sharing something you love with someone that's never played it before. Isn't there?
Yeah, I like teaching games. I'm the game teacher at most of the tables I sit down at.
Hmm.
But I also like getting taught new games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, that's going to take us to the outro. Pshaw.
Cool. We did it again. 70 episodes down.
We did it
Corey,
again.
what
This is the
yeah,
first
we did
70 as
another
far as I know.
episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did another episode. We've done 70 episodes. It's a lot.
I guess we did. Yeah, look at us go.
Well, that's enough back patting, Corey. What you been doing besides playing all those cool board games?
Oh, yeah. My friend Andy's been trying to talk me into playing with him in this British brass band for years, and I finally caved. In the last couple of weeks, I started going to the rehearsals to just kind of sit in. I'm not officially a member of this group yet, but I have been. I have been coming for a little while and playing music with them. I didn't really know much about this. Have you ever heard of a British brass band before, Harrison?
I was going to ask you if that is a type of band or if that's the name of the band.
No, it's a type of band.
No.
So I at my school I teach a New Orleans brass band, which is a completely different genre. That's more like of a jazz Dixieland sort of feel. But a British brass band is kind of like a festival competitive brass band that plays all brass instruments, as you may have guessed, and instruments that are into the style of brass band include like baritones and euphoniums and trombones and trumpets and tubas and just tons and tons of different variations on those, sort of written in different keys. So I'm finding myself reading, trombone often reads in bass clef. All of the trombone music in the British brass band is written in treble clef and in B flat. So you got to transpose all of it if you're a, like a bass clef reader. But it's been really cool. It's been really challenging to play, and it's some fun music. And I just love hearing like just brass chords that are like full and thick and meaty with all these big deep tuba sounds going on. So yeah, that's my latest craze around here.
I don't know what half the words you said are because I am not anywhere musically inclined. I think you remember that. I performed once with you on stage because someone threw me a tambourine,
Yeah, there
and
you
that's the
go.
extent of my musical knowledge. But I do enjoy listening to some brass band. Yeah.
Cool. Anyways, how about you?
I have been trying to finish Silk Song because, as of recording, Hades 2 comes out tomorrow. And then I've also been getting back into some of those little idle incremental games. I'm a sucker for
Mm,
those. I went to go find this. There's an old game that I came out many years ago, and they just released their like 4.0 reimagining of the entire game. It's a browser game called Synergism, and it is menus and numbers getting really big, and some
mm-mm.
people, including Lauren, think it is just the most absurd thing ever. Why would you ever play something like this? But I really like numbers going up. Uh, and Synergism is one that when I first played it, when it was really like in its older or infancy stages, I actually contributed some artwork to it, some pixel art. So I'm listed in the credits for it, but having replayed it now, I'm not there anymore. My artwork's not there. I'm still in the credits, but my artwork is gone, which that's fine. That's fine.
Since you started talking about this, I loaded it up and I am now playing a game. I
Yep,
have
there you go.
three workers. Yeah, you're not wrong. This is just a bunch of text, and
Oh yeah.
it looks like my workers are doing work and making money. And the more I have, the faster I make money.
Yep. Then you gotta get your prestiges, and then your reincarnations, and then your transcensions, and then oh sorry, those are in the opposite order. But eventually you start making ants, and then yeah, yeah, and then you start sacrificing those ants, and it gets crazy. Let me tell you.
This is not surprising to me coming from Cookie Clicker guy.
Oh, it's not the same guy who made this one. It's a
No,
different
you're a
different guy.
Cookie
Oh
Clicker
yeah,
guy.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, I hope I don't get addicted to that game. I have other games to play. All right, that brings us to the end of another episode. Thank you for listening. And if you've been here with us for the first 70 episodes, you can join our 70 episode club by emailing adamantlyanalog@gmail.com and declaring yourself a member. And we will respond to you and say, congratulations, here is your cred.
How people will do that.
I mean, I got plenty of cred to hand out, so don't worry about it. We're good.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Adamantly Analog is Corey Murphy and Harrison Dunn. Original themes and bumper music by Corey Murphy. Reach us at adamantlyanalog@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.